Everybody. This is Chris from the Zoho Sales IQ team. Thank you so much for joining us today on this very important customer education and training webinar. A question that many of you have asked our support team in emails, live chat, phone calls, and even the forums. It's a question that almost every new subscriber to Zoho Sales IQ asks, as well as an existing user. And so we thought it would be best to actually present different ways and different aspects through which we get this done so that it will be useful for all the existing users to make sure that they're putting the system to its best use as possible. And of course, we will be making a recorded copy of this webinar available probably in about 10 days from now, once all the editing work on it has been completed. So, for those of your colleagues, your boss, your co-workers who weren't able to join us today in this session, you can make use of that webinar. So we will be going over several important aspects during the course of this 50 to 60-minute webinar, and I will be taking questions at the end. However, you can send those questions at any point of time. They will keep coming to me, and I will be answering them in the end. So you don't have to wait for the session to complete to begin your questions. You can send them at any time, at any point of time during a slide or during a demo. So just to rephrase and to make it formal, today's webinar topic will be what can I do to make Sales IQ show my website visitors with their names and email addresses. That's going to be what we discuss today. So how does Sales IQ's visitor identification work? How exactly does it identify a visitor's name and email address? From where does that get that data? And if there's any way that you can improve that gathering capability, that's going to be one of the important things we're going to discuss today. The next, of course, is when an anonymous visitor, which is basically any visitor with just their IP address. Anybody who's been using Sales IQ would have seen that on the visitors online rings and the visitor history section. You would have seen mostly IP addresses, and you would wonder what would it take to see their names and email addresses. So, what converts such people into people with names and email addresses? That's what we're going to look at next. And this is another common question that we get. People purchase Zoho CRM, people purchase Zoho Sales IQ. They add the code that's given to them either from the Sales IQ or Zoho CRM. It's the same thing. But they wonder when results will actually start flowing in to Zoho CRM because they know Sales IQ is tracking a lot of visitors, but for some reason that doesn't seem to populate inside the visits tab of your Zoho CRM, which continues to say, please add the code to your website. So this is another common question that we get. So we're going to be covering that. This is basically the answer to this question basically is this entire webinar. So at the end of this webinar, if you are able to implement most, not even all, most of what we suggest, then this visits tab will start getting populated automatically. And once this data is actually loaded inside your Zoho CRM, where do you locate it? Your Zoho CRM is going to be populated with a lot of leads and contacts coming in from different applications, not just Zoho Sales IQ. It's going to be coming in from campaigns. You're going to import it from your previous CRM that you used. You're going to get it from forms. You're going to be getting it from newsletter signups, so many things. So how do you tell Sales IQ generated leads from those? That's next. And website login systems. All of you there with an e-commerce website, a login system is pretty much a fundamental requirement for you guys. People cannot make a purchase without identifying themselves. They need an account. They need this account to be connected to a cart, a shopping cart, where they add their items to and they check out. So that is useful for all of you users who have members logging into certain premium sections of your website. It could be a gaming website, it could be a gambling website, it could be a healthcare website where people log in to purchase prescription medicine, it could be anything. All of these systems that have an access control wall through which visitors need to identify themselves before they can proceed, all those systems can be connected to Sales IQ. So, what's the advantage? Pretty much the same thing that you get when you log into your bank. You put in a username, you put in a password, the bank identifies you by name, the customer's name, and greets you as soon as you come in. All your transactions are then connected to your account digitally. You didn't have to prove your identity each time. So that's how this system works as well. It's very similar, if not same. And of course, we will be showing you lots of other aspects as well, but these five things are what we're going to look at in detail today. So, we can tell you about all the different advantages of finding out a visitor's name and email address, we figured that we should first tell you what's the advantage. I mean, why should you go to great distances or great lengths to implement these systems? It's not very difficult, but why should you do it in the first place? I mean, why would I do something if I was a sales IQ customer unless it directly benefits my business or my company? That's the fundamental reason behind using any of your Zoho apps. So we need to first tell you what the advantages are so you know what you're getting into and you know what you're going to get out of that. So we are going to be talking first about that briefly. And it's obvious when I say that increased identification of visitors to your website would allow you to generate more leads. Any lead is a person with an identity, with an email address or a phone number, preferably both, that you can use to contact them later. They have been to your website, seen a lot of pages, Sales IQ tells you that. But once you know the person, you're going to be able to depute your salespeople to contact them, to see what they are interested in, offer them better discounts, and not let them slip away. So it gives you this ability to do that. And what that means is that uh, you're not going to be signing up for new marketing tools, expensive applications that promise to generate leads. Uh, so you're going to be using whatever systems you have currently on your website. Any normal business would have to have some of the systems we're going to discuss. So we are going to only use whatever you already have. And if whatever you already have is going to get you more leads and more revenue as a result, then the cost of acquiring those leads is going to steadily fall. We all know that when we pay for a service or a product, in effect, we are also subsidizing that company's marketing efforts. To put it differently, when you pay for a product, a phone, for instance, you're also paying the company or reimbursing the company for the costs they incurred in finding you. Their advertisements found you, you liked it, and that's why you purchased their services. And the a portion of your fee is covering those marketing efforts. So the lower you can keep those lead acquisition costs, the better your profit margins are. On a good day, you can lower your prices and be more competitive, or on a normal day, you can sit back and relax without your profit margins not being threatened. So that's another thing. So since you're not spending more, but you're going to get more in return anyway, that's actually increasing your return of investment, ROI, as we call it. So again, that's beneficial for you. And not only does Sales IQ show you who the person is, the name and their email, it also tells you what they did on the website. So, for example, you send out a newsletter that promises a 10% discount on certain products if they are purchased together. You can see that the person has seen the newsletter, opened it, visited your website, looked at the features of the product for so many minutes, went to the pricing page, spent so many minutes, clicked a certain button to sign up or add items to the cart, and then check out by paying. So you can see the entire process from the time they were introduced to the idea to the time they liked the idea and stayed on to finally the time when they purchased it. So the entire sales funnel is now open to you for scrutiny. So wherever you see visitors spending more time than they should, you can improve the content of the website on those in those places so people get whatever they need to soon. You can set up surveys to help people give you different ideas and feedback so you can make those improvements. There are different ways in which this will be helpful to you. You can see products that sell better, you can see products that need more attention. So that's very useful. And once you know the person's name and email address, like I said, and possibly phone number, it gives you a way to follow up with them. You see somebody has been to your website two, three times in the last week, they're not there by accident. You don't go to the same website by accident three times a week. You're there because you wanted to check out something. So everybody who's been to your website a certain number of times in a week, you know who they are now because you're going to follow all these different advices we are giving you. So that gives you a way to send a newsletter follow up to them. Just maybe tell them that they're going to get a 10% discount, for example. So what happens if you don't? You are likely going to lose that deal anyway because the person is probably checking your competitors as well. But by sending them a newsletter because you know who they are, you're proactively able to clinch that deal because even though you sacrifice 10% of your revenue, you got 90% of the product's price back. So you didn't lose 100% of the deal, you got 90% of the deal. And any business with any margin would find that a really good deal because you're getting revenue versus losing them and having nothing to correct it. So that's a major advantage. So now that we know what the advantages are, at least before we jump into all of this, we will also have to know how the tracking system works. We're not going to go into the ultra technical aspects of it because we know this webinar is not for your web developers, it's for our customers, people who use the application on a daily basis. But knowing how certain things work, knowing that your car runs on gasoline, helps you manage it better. In the same way, when you know what Sales IQ runs on, what it uses, it helps you use the application better. And so it's not all that complicated, basically. To put it in simple terms, it's what we call as browser cookies. So what are browser cookies? They're just little things. Think of it as these cookies, but you just can't eat them in this case. Whenever somebody visits your website, SalesIQ is going to place these cookies on their web browser, on their computer, and it's going to keep updating that information every time they return to your website, like a little post-it note. First time they come to your website, it notes down that, it notes down when they came, what they did, how much time they spent. Second time, whatever they did. Third time, all those visits are going to go on that post-it, which by now becomes probably a ledger. So it's going to keep all of that. So the next time it sees a person, it sees this posted on them, so it instantly recognizes who that person is. So that's the idea behind a browser cookie. And why we use a browser cookie? Because it's far more effective than IP address based tracking that many of our competitors use. Even Google Analytics that many of you uh, use IP address based tracking. And the problem with IP address is that unless you're dealing with major corporations, everybody else, all the small, all the medium businesses are going to use what's called dynamic IP addresses. So every time they connect to the internet, it's going to change. Their address is going to change. It's not going to be static. So information that you saved on your system matching one IP address will not work if that IP address changes. So that's another problem. So So sorry about that. So once Sales IQ knows who a visitor is, it's going to remember that for a long time. So that's possible through the browser cookies, and that is also why we use them. So if you go to many of these websites today, you would notice this little banner at the bottom that says we use tracking cookies or browser cookies on our website to improve our services. So they're basically referring to this. So that is exactly what these cookies do with Sales IQ as well. So now we're going to come to the most important aspect of the session today. The different methods through which Sales IQ actually identifies who a visitor is and stop showing them as an IP address, but rather as a person with a name and email that you can use. So, what are those different methods? The first is pretty much the most obvious aspect: live chat conversations. Every time you have a live chat conversation with somebody, for them to connect with you, they provide their name and email address. Even if they do that only once, Sales IQ is going to remember that because thanks to browser cookies, that information is going to stay there. Web forms, or web to lead forms, as some companies call it, whether you use a Zoho CRM powered form or any other form that was either custom built by your developer or purchased or built using many of the tools that are available in the market, whichever ones they are, Sales IQ can work with pretty much 99% of all of them. Email campaigns. Most of you have the ability to send out mass email campaigns, and it's also pretty cheap. Most of businesses only send out a few hundred emails a month, and services that offer email campaign blast capability, they don't charge you much for those emails. So it's pretty cheap, pretty affordable. It allows you to respond or contact a lot of your customers and potential customers with a personalized email template. So anybody opening that email to get to your website, they all get tracked by Sales IQ. That identity is captured. And finally, the login systems on your website that we discussed. So it's not necessary that you should use all four of them, but although you use, your chances of identifying visitors goes up exponentially. People, or at least serious shoppers to your website, people who are interested in your services, they will come in contact with at least one of these forms, one of these different capabilities. They will have a doubt to ask over live chat. They will probably have to fill up a form to request an appointment or uh, get a quote or something like that. They probably found out your website through an email campaign promotion that their friend or family shared with them. Uh, of course, even after they purchase your service or to avail your services, they would maybe need an account in the first place. For example, for you to check out what your friends and family are up to on Facebook, you would need a Facebook account. So once you sign up for a Facebook account, Facebook now knows who you are. So yes, you get to check out every other aspect of Facebook, but Facebook itself knows who you are. The system is not revolutionary. It's been there for a long, long time. So the ability of sales like you to connect with them makes it easy for all of you there who use the system. So we're going to look at the first one, the live chat conversation. You can look at this little animation on the left side. Somebody clicks on the chat sticker, they fill in their name and the email address.
If you have a department, they're going to choose that and they type their question. As soon as they do this, they're going to get connected to you. It's also a very commonly used uh, engagement tool to connect with your staff because it's visible right there on your website. Contact forms, email, and even telephone numbers are pretty slow. Most people, if you look at any statistic or any research, guarantee that it's easier to use a live chat, especially if you have, what you would consider as simple doubts, than to pick up the phone and wait to connect to somebody. And it's also good for businesses because when you're on the phone with somebody, you can speak to only one person at a time. Live chat conversations, on the other hand, if you're reasonably good, you can handle up to five, six customers at the same time. It also allows you to copy paste responses, frequently asked questions like the cost of a product or a service. You can keep copy pasting the same response to a lot of people, and that is something you cannot do on a phone call. So, most of you use it, even the few ones who don't use it uh, can probably start trying it out because even if you think you're not going to be available most of the time, live chat can still take messages from your website. It acts as a sort of a voicemail system, except this is text based. So even if you're not around, people can leave you messages. And remember, when before they leave a message, they're also leaving their email address for you. So that's going to let you follow up with them later when you return the next day. If you don't have it there, those people are simply going to drift away. So it's something that you can consider having. And of course, we have a free Sales IQ mobile app for both iPhones and Android. So even if you're not glued to your computer and if you have the habit of moving around a lot, as long as your phone has reception, signal reception, it's going to be connected to the internet. If it's connected to the internet, the app is going to keep notifying you of any new messages from the website. That also allows your chat to stay online. So please look into that. So, what happens after the person starts a chat? We saw that earlier, how things look on the visitor side. So, if you look at this little visitor who showed up on my screen right now on the extreme left, this visitor from America, you can see they're identified by a random system generated number. So, this is what you would have seen on the visitor's online screen a lot. No name, no email address, nothing. But this person is right now filling up their name and email address on the website. And as they're doing it, once soon as they start the chat, you will see a pop up come up at the bottom right corner. And this, of course, is your Sales IQ dashboard. You can see how this animation changed right now. As soon as the chat came in, the visitor's identification changed from a number to uh, email address. So this is the number we saw earlier, and it went back to, let me just fast forward. It went back to a name, whatever name the person gave when they started the chat. Pretty straightforward it is. Most of the time, you may not have noticed this because you usually come to the screen after you hear a chat come in. But we thought it would be cool to show you how it actually works in action. So, this is what it does in action. So now that we know live chat, it's pretty self-explanatory. Many of you are already using it, so we didn't go too much into the details. We will be having a separate webinar to discuss about the live chat capabilities later on. But for now, we will move to the next capability through which Sales IQ finds out a person's name and email address. And that is the web form, or as some of you know it, web to lead forms. So I'm just going to show you a bunch of samples of web forms that a lot of other customers have put up, and some of them are samples as well. So you can see as soon as you go to one of these websites, you get a pop-up like this that you would have noticed many times. So you want to sign up for something, you can provide the email address, and this is a form This form has the bare minimum information that's required, just the email address. And it's simple to produce or type in. Most of the time, the browser automatically fills it in, so the visitor just has to click done. They don't have to fill up too many fields. And what this means is that it makes the form more successful. The less the effort the visitors have to put in, the more likely they are to use it. Simple. So that's one sample. This is a more elaborate sample. People who use, different services that need a lot of information to begin with, such as a real estate. So here you can see different things a person would need to put up to register for an account so that they can access whatever content that you see behind. So to search for different properties, they need to have an account, and they know that they need to provide this information, and they do that. So sometimes, people ask even more information, like what kind of services they're looking at. So that allows them to group these leads into different categories. But any of these forms that have an email address in them, sales IQ either will connect automatically or can be manually connected. We will be looking at them in detail. So here's another form that also shows up a pop-up, a simple email address to fill up, and a submit button. And this too. So different variations of that. They just simply don't pop up and simply say, "I need your email address," in which case the success rate is going to be pretty low. But in these cases, you can see that they have these very colorful, friendly messages that tell people that, if you provide this information, it's good for both of us. And that actually increases compliance rate. So if you plan on doing this, I would suggest that you do it on the double, because these are very effective. So for those who are uninitiated, we have seen what a web form is. We have seen how it looks. Now we are going to see how you can find out information from them. So most of you here already use Zoho CRM. And the good thing about Zoho CRM is that it allows you to build a web form very easily. No coding is required. You just drag and drop the fields. So if you need a name field, you just drag the name box and put it on the builder on the right. You need to collect somebody's phone number, just drag that field and put it there. You need them to choose from one of the many options, drag the multiple choice option and type in your different options. There you go. You're done. It's very simple to use. And they also make these web forms available across all the editions. So even if you use the Zoho CRM free edition, you can still build a form. And you can use the same form on multiple places on the same website, or even different websites for that matter. So the more frequently people see it, the more likely they are to fill it up. That is there. And of course, depending on the subscription, the number of forms that you can create also goes up. But the point is that all Zoho CRM editions allow you to build a form. And the major advantage is that it allows you to integrate Will Sales IQ at the click of a single button. So it's very easy. So we're just going to see how to do that if you haven't already done it. So this is the Zoho CRM form I was telling you about. So you can see on the left side, all these different fields are there. Currency, country, all those fields. You just drag them, drop them on the right side, and you can see how the form looks. You change the text. You can click the preview button here to see how it's going to look on the website. And once you go to the next step, you will see this option on the web form builder that says something like this: visitor tracking powered by Zoho Sales IQ. By default, it's turned off, but you just turn the slider to the right and that activates the capability. So what this does is anybody who fills up the form on your website, wherever you've pasted them, in any of your websites, it's going to find out their name and email address from the form as they fill it up. And every time they return to your website, they're going to show up with that name and email. So remember, this form is also going to create a lead or a contact profile inside your Zoho CRM. And SalesIQ is going to keep updating that leads information there. So you know when the lead is coming back, you know what pages they are looking at. And if they keeps looking at the same page too often, the next time your sales agent calls them up, they know what this visitor was interested in. So they are looking at this particular property type or car or phone or whatever that is. So the sales agent can talk about that, can talk about similar products, and also tell them good deals that would work if they purchase additional things. So they get a discount. So that way you end up telling what the customer likes to hear, the customer hears what they want to hear. So it's a very productive conversation for both of you, and that increases the chances of a sales agent closing a deal. So it's not going to be one of those irritating cold calls where people read off a script. You're going to have a sales agent who knows what you need, seems to know what you need, because as a customer, you have no idea how they know that. But you're willing to listen to them because they're telling you all the information that you wanted to hear. So, all that intelligence by just turning on a single switch on a form. If you've already built a form, if it's already there, a Zoho CRM form, you could just go back to your Zoho CRM. I'll just show you an example. You can see all those, sorry, you can see all those forms in the background, different forms. You usually have named them based on the page they are on or something. So you just click those forms, scroll down, enable the visitor tracking application. And once you're done, you're going to be given a code that you paste to your website. So the form actually shows up there. The code will now include additional bits of information that tells the code to start tracking visitor information. So if you already have a form and if you're making these changes, do note that you need to replace the code with a new one. Only then the changes will take effect. So that's important to remember. So it's very simple to do with the Zoho CRM form. So what about a lot of you others who don't use a Zoho CRM form, use one of the many third-party services or add your developer, design your own form? How do you guys connect it with Sales IQ? Pretty simple, actually. No coding is required. You don't have to do a lot of things. You just have to change a small piece of information we're going to show you. You don't have to write several lines of code, nothing, not even a single line of code, basically. So, what is that change that you need to do? So, as I said, Sales IQ can be connected to all third party forms. There is something called an attribute that every form has. We're going to see what that is. You just have to make sure that those attributes on those forms use some of the recognized or preferred terms that we show you. Once you make the change, you're all set to go. So these are the terms. So it might look a little confusing for you, but once we upload this copy onto YouTube for you to view later, you can probably just send this across to your developers so they know what they are looking at. Or you can probably just take a screenshot of the screen and put it in an email and send it to your developer, telling them that these attributes for the name and email address, because your form can have a lot of other fields collecting a lot of other information, but Sales IQ only needs these two. It doesn't need anything else. So the name field should use any one of these attributes, that is your name, subscriber name, contact name, customer name, and so on. The email field should use any of these: email ID, your email, contact email, subscriber email, or just mail, or customer email as well. So there are different things that you can do. Any one of these can be used. There is no compulsion to use any one thing. And remember, it's not going to show up on the form itself. This is going to be in the coding that's in the background. So people are not going to be seeing it on your website. Whatever changes we are suggesting you make, they're not going to see that information. This is going to be in the background, and it's only going to be visible to your website developer and you if you're going to take a look at that. So you are all clear to make these changes. It's very minor. So where exactly do you make these changes in a form? So I just said attributes. I didn't tell you where those attributes are. My webinar would be incomplete if I don't do that. So I'm going to show you that. So if you go here, this is a sample form. So what you see on the right side is a form. It's a crude form, but we deliberately kept it that way because it's easier to explain and fit inside a single frame. So basically, whatever you see on your website is nothing but lines and lines of code that are then somehow magically converted into all those nice boxes, texts, and images, sometimes videos as well. So for the name field, in this form, for example, this developer simply added a random text, something like input 123. Different developers have the habit of using different things. There's no compulsion that they have to use one or the other. So they can use any one of these things. So they end up using anything for that matter. We need to make sure that these terms are standardized so that people don't use anything they want, because that would make it difficult for the sales IQ to be able to try and read the information from the form. So that is why we gave you those attributes. If you have taken a screenshot of them, you can just send them across and probably take a screenshot of this as well. But like the caption reads at the bottom, if you use incompatible words like these, it's not going to work. Instead, what you need to do is use something like this. Remember, one of the many attributes that I showed you for the name field was your name. And one of the many attributes I showed for the email field was your email. You can use any one of them, like I said. In this case, I used this one. So now it's the same form on the right side. There's absolutely no change, like you can see. There is no structural change. There's no change in the font. It's still going to read name and email and other things. But this hidden code allows Sales IQ to be able to read this form. It's almost like, let's say you don't speak Mandarin and somebody sends you a text in Mandarin, you don't understand what it says. But what if the person or your phone can translate that text and show it to you in English? It's the same text, but now you understand what it says. So that's exactly what we are talking about here. Sales IQ can understand words in a certain language or certain types of words. If you end up using any random made up words that you understand, it doesn't necessarily mean sales IQ also will. So what we are suggesting you do is replace those any random term with certain recommended terms that we suggest. It doesn't affect your form's performance in any way. It just changes one of the hidden names. So our app can now read the contents of the form. So somebody fills up this form and presses this button, submit button. Sales Cycle will now intercept this information, your name, whatever they type here, and your email, whatever they type here, and use that to track them in the future. It's a very simple change that they have to make. So just to make it easy for you guys, I will show you these attributes again so you can take a screenshot. Perhaps at the end of the session, if any of you missed doing this, I will come back to this slide once again so you can take a snapshot. Of course, we will be publishing the video as well, so you can probably send that information to your developer. They know what to do. You don't have to go into the details. Just tell them, make sure the form or all our forms on the website use any one of these attributes. And once you say that, they know what it means. And they will do it. So that completes number two of a small list of four different ways through which you can identify visitors. The next one is email campaigns. So I'm sure when I've said email campaigns in the beginning, some of you would have asked this question. I'm very sure you did. But I have some news for you. You would be surprised that despite all those pundits talking about emails dying soon, it has anything but. The number of email accounts have only been growing even this year. and more than half the world's population has an email address, even though the world's less than half of the world's population has an active internet connection. So, in other words, even people who need to go to a cyber cafe to access the internet, they have an email address. So, even those people, occasional web browsers or web surfers, they have an email account. So, it's not something that is going to die. So, this is another important thing. A lot of people are talking about social media. Yes, yes. But you have to ask yourself how many of your grandparents and parents are able to navigate through social media. They certainly will be able to navigate through an email much better. It's much easier to set it up on a phone or on a computer. It's also much easier to use it in all the non English speaking countries as well, where social media is still taking time to develop. It's using local content, but still, it's taking time to develop. But emails, on the other hand, people have had a long exposure to them. Even people who have been using the internet since the early 90s know very well how to use an email, and so do the millennials. So, no wonder there are three times as many email accounts as compared to social media accounts. And this is important. More people spend a lot of time reading a lot of emails on their computer. Even things that they're going to mark as spam, they eventually do skim through it. If it's interesting enough, worded very well, they click on the link, go to the website, check out something. And if your offers are good enough, and if your target audience is good enough, they will either end up buying something they didn't even think of buying until a few minutes ago, or they will probably forward it to somebody who will. So that's an impressive marketing strategy that involves such a reduced expenditure. And this is the reason behind the Reuters survey that talked about how an email is 40 times as likely to acquire uh, customers than social media. Because a lot of people who use social media also use it for personal uses, but most of the people who use emails use it for personal and professional uses, or they have two different accounts. So you reach them on either one, you can still connect with them. So that's an important thing you need to remember. So email campaigns, emails, they're here to stay, and most email services allow you to send out emails at a very cheap rate or very affordable rate, so you can keep using the services, and there should be no problem at all. So, what kind of email campaign services does Sales IQ integrate with? It's not necessarily only the Zoho apps that we integrate with. We also integrate with a lot of other applications as well. So you can see some of them here. We have only included the major ones, but of course, a lot of others are also supported. If you go to the Sales IQ website and then to the integration section, you will see a lot more of them. So apart from Zoho apps, we do integrate with others as well, including the market leader MailChimp. So we need to do this. So we have told you that emails are here to stay, but we also need to tell you how effective email campaigns are and what advantages you get by connecting Sales IQ to an email campaign. Of course, you get to know the name and email address. That's the point behind today's webinar. But what else do you get? So this is a typical dashboard from a MailChimp account. If any of you have used MailChimp to send out mass emails, you would notice that after the emails have been sent, you're taken to this screen where the stats for that email campaign are displayed. So you can see how many people have received your emails. So that's 52 recipients. Out of that, almost half of them, about 25 of them, have opened it. So that's 49%. And out of that, about nine people have clicked the link, whatever link that is there on the email, to get to your website or landing page. So pretty much 17% of the people that you emailed visited your website. So even if 10% of your total audience purchased it, five people purchased it, the cost of you emailing 50 people, the time required to do that was probably just 15-20 minutes. The cost is almost nothing. And you just gained 5-10 customers. So that's a very good thing. So imagine what you can do with 500 emails or 5,000 emails. So that's a valid question to ask yourself. But before we go on that tangent, I want to tell you this information is useful, yes, but is that all that you can get? Absolutely not. What if I can tell you that we can give you a lot more information if you connect your MailChimp account to Sales IQ, so that every emails that you send out hereafter will get you far more information and intelligence than before. So before I do that, I just want to give you an example. I'm sure most of you are familiar with an IKEA store. And for those of you joining this webinar from outside the US or other countries where you don't have IKEA, briefly put, they are one of the world's largest or the largest uh, furniture and home appliances company. Their specialty is to make appliances and equipment that are ready to use. So you just get a kit, you assemble them at home, and you're ready with your new appliance or furniture. So it's pretty straightforward. And all those of you who have seen an IKEA store, this picture doesn't do any justice to it. Because believe me, when we talk about an IKEA store, this is more like it. It's huge. And for those of you who are from smaller countries, you would notice that the size of this IKEA store is as much as an airfield or a small airport in a town. It's huge. So your website is sort of something like this. It's huge. A lot of things are happening inside it. Sales IKEA is going to help you, uh, look at all the valuable information from that. So this is an IKEA store. And once you walk into an IKEA store, you're going to see a map that's something similar like this. If you look at it very closely, once you enter through the entrance, let's say you want to go directly to the children's and the kitchen section, there's no direct way to it. You have to go through all these other places to get there. The idea behind that is that you will see things in all these other sections that you didn't intend to go, and we know what our eyes do to us and our wallets. It makes us buy things that we never could afford but always wanted. So that's what the store layout is about. So this is the plan. And imagine what would happen if I say that your website, if it is like an IKEA store, and once it's connected to Sales IQ, like these two jigsaw puzzle pieces, what happens is that you don't see this kind of information. This is a picture taken from one of the stores. So you don't see a bunch of people walking here and there, because as of now, that's what is happening on the website or on the MailChimp dashboard. It tells you how many people got to your website. As per the screenshot that we saw earlier, 17.56 people. Yeah, that's good to know. Yes, but what am I gaining out of that is your question. So instead of just looking at this information, this screenshot is basically uh, that 17.56% you saw on MailChimp. It doesn't tell you anything more. You can see a lot of people here, but you don't know anything else. You don't know where or what they are doing. But that's where Sales IQ comes in. Once you connect Sales IQ to your MailChimp, this happens. Now this is what's called a heat map of an IKEA store. And all these different lines that you see are basically lines of people walking across the different aisles. Remember, I showed you a map of the IKEA store, and the layout of the store is designed in such a way that you have to go in at one corner of the store and you have to come out at the other. There's no way to take a shortcut in between. You have to pass through all the sections that you don't want to go. But look at this heat map here. You can look at all these sections. If you follow my mouse pointer, you can look at this section here, for example. people almost don't go here because the entrance takes them this way. So a lot of people go this way, but almost no one goes this way. And what if you have a lot of products here that need to be sold? So if this was your website, Sales IQ has shown you this information. So what do you do with it? You probably set up a barricade here, closing this entrance, and you break through the wall here, creating a new entrance. So people can no longer walk this way and exit here. They have to go through this. And following IKEA's trademark marketing strategy, you go through shelves and aisles that you didn't get a chance to go through earlier, and you will be looking at things that you never saw earlier, and you will definitely be clearing out all those items there. So things that were left unsold in your warehouses, they are now going to be sold. You can even put a sticker on them saying, yeah, take a discount 10%. Like I already said, 100% loss is not the same as 90% profit. So now you end up selling all these things. So now you close this door back up and open this one again, and people start moving just like before. This is one example. Another example here is here you can see all this yellow and these red areas. These are all places where there's more activity. More people are crowding up here. I suppose this is the IKEA's budget restaurant inside. For those of you who have been to an IKEA store, you would know that they sell food at a really cheap price. So people are probably here. So it makes good sense to put up advertisements to best deals in these restaurants. So people are going to be sitting down there and munching on stuff. They will be looking around and they will be seeing all these posters. And if you have a PA system, a public address system, you can make the announcements and people are going to be listening to them. Unlike all these other areas where they're passing by, here there's a lot of crowd. People are probably sitting down here. So you end up promoting products that otherwise don't get a chance to promote themselves. So on your website, if a lot of people are going to go to one section, you could probably put up a banner there or a notice or a form that tells them about the other services they might be interested in. And that helps you sell those as well. And just making use of your own website or a certain section of your website for better marketing capabilities. So this is what Sales IQ does. But again, we are looking at an IKEA store. Your obvious question is, show me this information inside Sales IQ. Well, don't be disappointed. Here it is. So your visitor's online screen inside your Sales IQ, once you click on a visitor, you will be able to see their navigation path on the right side, which is what you see in this lens here. So in this example, for instance, you can see this visitor from Los Angeles and entered your e-commerce store, chose the women's section. So this gives you an idea. This person is probably a woman, but we are not going to jump to a conclusion yet. So they're looking at short sleeves t-shirts. They've added it to their cart. Now you can configure Sales IQ to probably come up with a pop-up or a message as soon as they press this add to cart button on this page, saying that if you buy a jean along with the short sleeve shirt, you're going to get a 20% discount on both of them. So what happens is a person who intended to purchase only one of your product will now be purchasing two of them. So you have sold two. So you got a good deal. The customer got a good deal because they ended up buying two things at a very good rate and they feel happy about it. And they're going to tell people about that, and more people are going to come to your website. So, word of mouth marketing, which is the best form of marketing. And you can see they've again gone to another section and so on and so forth. And you can see how much time they're spending in all of them. So you can see this came to the store, they scrolled down, they probably saw this shirt, they liked it, and they purchased it pretty much instantly, 20 seconds. That's insane. But they kept moving, and once they came to this one, they're spending a lot of time there, almost 9 minutes looking through those things there. So either you have a lot of interesting things there, so they have to zoom in on each one of them to see how good that looks, or it was just not as user friendly as the other sections, so it took a lot of time. So again, this is one thing similar to this heat map that we saw. Remember this area in red? Well, for this visitor at least, uh, the print address section is that. They spent a lot of time there. So if you've got a lot of interesting stuff there, this is the place where you would put up all the banners, the bills, and whistles to let people know about all the discount offers. So they go from here and end up buying 3 or 4 products, even though they came to your website intending to buy one. So you sold 4 times as many products as the customer wanted, the IKEA way. So that's an important advantage that Sales IQ gives you once you connect it to the email campaign service. So it's not just Zoho campaigns, it's not just MailChimp, like I said, pretty much any of the other services that Sales IQ works with. So I have here a Sales IQ account. So just go to settings, just navigate to integrations, scroll down here, and you will be seeing all these different applications that are listed. So you can click on any one of them. Okay, MailChimp is listed here. You can just click on them and enable the integration. So that is all you have to do. It's pretty easy to use. So how exactly do you deploy this integration? So we're going to look at that here. So I have your Zoho Campaigns account. So again, you can see something similar to what we have seen on the MailChimp account. It shows all the statistics. So what if I just briefly show you how exactly you deploy Sales IQ on your website? So this is one of the recent campaigns that I sent out to create this video, which I will be showing you later. So I'm just going to make a copy of that. So let's just call it number 2. And once that is done, I'm going to go inside that and I'm going to edit the content. This is important because I need to show you a few things. So this is the email campaign template. Uh, Zoho Campaigns allows you to choose from any one of the several email campaign templates. So if you look at this one, you can see there's a hyperlink here. That's how any email campaign works. You put a link to your website on one of these links. So people click that, they go to your website. Let's just assume it's this one. So this is one of our dummy websites, demo websites rather. So I'm just going to copy this URL. Normally what I do is I'm going to hyperlink that here. So anybody clicking that goes here. To integrate Sales IQ to your website as well as the email campaign, you just need to do one extra step. It's very easy. Go back to Zoho Sales IQ, settings, integration. Since we're using Zoho campaigns here, I'm going to go to that. It's listed here. So once you enable the integration, this is how the screen is going to look like. You can skip all of these. This information is going to be populated by default. You come down to the bottom. This line here that says show. Click that and you have something called an identifier link. This is what basically allows you collect all the important information. So here I paste uh, the URL of my website from here over here. Usually this is what goes into my email campaigns, but now before I do that, I paste it here and I press generate. So you can see the link has been generated, and if you look at this, let me zoom in. You can see the URL I pasted is here, and then there's this question mark, and there's a sort of a tracking link after that. The tracking link is equipped to find out the first name, last name, and email address of everybody who clicks this link. So I'm just going to highlight this text here, click this little button that you can see, this chain link button, and I'm going to paste this whole thing inside. Normally it will be just the URL. Now I'm going to paste the whole thing here. So what happens is everybody who clicks this on their email, we're going to see what happens basically. So after that email with the tracking link has been sent out, this video was recorded to make sure I don't take too much of your time. So you can see the same email campaign open there, and I'm just using my mouse pointer to highlight the hyperlink. And watch the address bar closely. You can see, I've just paused the video. You and let me just zoom in. So you can see the URL. You can see this particular code that I created here, which says first name, last name, and email address. But in this case, in this video, you can see that the first name has been replaced with this person's name, Patricia, the last name by her last name, Boyle, and the email field has been replaced by the email address, the actual email address from which this email was opened. And then it disappears right away. So this entire thing was slowed down so you can look at it, but when the website visitor clicks the link, they are hardly going to notice it. There are so many things happening on their screen, they will never see this happen. And here you go. As soon as this visitor visits your website, remember this person has never been to your website before. You don't have them in your database, or you probably do, but they never been to your website before. But as soon as they click that link and come here, you can see their name and email address are displayed. And as soon as we have this information, Sales IQ can look them up on CRM and get all their data from CRM and show it to you. So this is how it works, and it's very, very effective, very easy to use. So this is how the whole system works. So we're going to talk about the last aspect of the webinar today, identifying visitors through the website login system. So you'd have seen one of these different login systems on many websites. You want to buy something on Amazon, eBay, you need to log in before the item can be shipped to you, or before you can even pay for that. So this is a sample login system. So what you need to do to connect Sales IQ to that is simple. The person who creates an account only will be able to sign into your website, because they're going to use the username and password. So what you're going to do is you're going to connect Sales IQ to that database of yours, where all the people who registered, their details are going to show up. So you're going to make that connection. So what happens is you're just going to use these two APIs. You're going to pass it to your developers, and they're going to connect them to the login system. So anybody who puts in a username, you're going to get that data from them, and you're going to pass it on to Sales IQ. And the next is for the email address. This does the same thing. It fetches the email address of the visitor from your database, and it shows it to you. So what happens is every time a person logs into your website, even though they don't provide the email address, it's going to get that from the database of yours where all the information is stored, and it's going to show it to you on the visitors online rings. So how exactly does that implementation work? This is a brief code that we set up. So it's a general purpose template. Of course, your website login systems can be designed ever so slightly differently. So you can just take a screenshot of this slide and pass it on to your developers. They will be able to use this as a base to customize it further and suit your own website's login system. So it connects Sales IQ to the login system. Let's just say my name is Chris. Let's just say I'm logging in with the username, uh, what do I say, Zoho123. So if I'm going to use that same username to show it to you on Visitors Online, you see somebody called Zoho123, you're not going to know who that person is. So what we do is, what Sales IQ does after you connect this API to the login system is, it looks up this username Zoho123 in your database. Because when I signed up for an account, I said my name is Chris and this is the username I'm going to use. It knows my name from that record, and it's going to use that information and find out what the person's actual name is and display it to you on the visitors online screen. So I hope you have taken a screenshot of this slide. And if you haven't, don't worry, I will come back to that later. So once that is done, anybody who's logging into your website from any device, mobile device, tablet, they might open your website in their office on one computer, go back home and open on another. So whichever device that is, every time they log in, SalesHawk is going to put a cookie on that device and it's going to track them, even if they don't log in the future, because the cookie is there, and even if the person doesn't log in, it can still look the information up from the cookie and identify them. So, like I said, all these four methods, they don't have to work every single time. It has to be used by the visitor only once. SalesHawk will remember that for all the subsequent visits. It also remembers their past visits as well, just so you don't forget. So once all the data has been collected, remember we looked over this in the agenda when we began. Once all the data is collected, it's going to show up inside your visits tab. I'll just show you how the visits tab works. So I'm just going to go to my CRM. So this is the visits tab. You can see all the leads listed here, and you can see the deal value and all of that here. So here's an actual CRM account. So you can see leads, contacts, and all of that. So you just click this drop down, you're going to see visits here. Sometimes you will see it on the top if you've already been using it. So there are different layouts here. This is a different layout. I'm just going to shift to that for the sake of uniformity. So here you can see all these different leads and contacts that have been added to Sales IQ, added to CRM by Sales IQ. So you can see all the information gathered by that visit. So every single thing they did on the website, it's all listed. All the time they spent, the chats, if any, they had. You can see all of that information here. So only when Sales IQ knows somebody's email address will it be adding them here. Because although it does show their IP address here, simply adding IP addresses to your visits tab isn't useful to you, because you can't use an IP address to look up somebody. You're going to need the email address, possibly more, to follow up with them. So only when it finds out the identity of a visitor from any one of these four methods, knows their email address, it's going to start filling up your visits tab. So until then, you're not going to see any data there. It's going to be empty. But once data starts coming in, it's going to fill up quickly, like this. So, like I said before, for the visits tab to be populated, you need to deploy any one of these four systems. So, live chat conversations help you generate leads, web forms help you generate leads, email campaigns, and website login, they all help you identify existing leads. So once SalesIQ finds out who they are, it's going to look up in CRM to see if they are there. If the email address matches, it's just going to update their information inside their profile. So just go inside a lead and click on any one of their information here. You will find all the visit related information under here, visit summary, and further down at the bottom here under visit Zoho Sales IQ. So it's going to start updating information here if the person already exists. If they don't, it's going to create a new lead or contact record in your system, and it's going to help you generate those leads. You can find these new leads in the visits tab, of course, because that's earmarked exclusively for Sales IQ. So make sure you deploy at least 2 to 3 of these systems. Live chat is easy. If you want to skip that, make sure the web form is there and send out email campaigns. If you can't use website logins, again, you have web forms and email campaigns to use. So I can understand totally, even if you don't want to use 2 of these systems. But if you're not going to use any of them, you're already putting your website and your services at a significant disadvantage, a marketing disadvantage. Not just from the perspective of sales IQ, but in general, your ability to recognize visitors and reach out to them. So, thank you so much for joining us. I'm